What's good, Mango? I didn't realize it was past a whole 60 seconds. I didn't realize that. I was lucky just looking at Instagram. Thanksgiving stream. I'm not going to go into family for like another like 3 hours potentially. So let's just stream, chat, maybe play a game or two for like 2.5 hours. Um, and then we do like Thanksgiving feast vibes. But like individually, because I'm not gonna be on the internet anymore. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Post food nap. L. No, I'm kidding. That'd be pull up though. What's good? Magazi, what's good? I'm gonna call you Miguel. How do you say the first part? Beziel? It's a cool name. You got a cool name, key. What's good, Links? I may have already had it because I don't remember the last hour. That's funny. Also concerning. Also concerning. So I don't have a plan, obviously, but what I do have is an idea. Just call me Miguel, bro. Don't worry about my first name. Nah, bro. Your first name's like it's like mad cool. Wait, Miguel isn't your first name. Is also crazy. That means it's probably your second name. Wait, people. Wait, if you're Miguel, no racial. Are you Hispanic? Cause like, no, I think Hispanic people have like. I guess it depends. Cause my ex didn't have a middle name. Just waiting for the day to pass. It's Black Friday tomorrow. I may not have a plan. Or wait, no. How does that meme go? I may not have a brain, but I have an idea. Is that how it goes? No, bro, you're black. Oh, nah, your name's still cool anyway. Doesn't matter. You know what? I could even name a character after you in my story, bro. That's how cool your name is. It's so unique, and I've never heard it ever in my life until this moment, right now in time, in current reality. Don't ask me about the other realities. I don't know about those. Okay. Low key. I should probably make like a visual for this. Like the other guys on the internet. Bro, glazing a name right now. Wait, I would, bro. Thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that, Dubs. Hey, man, super Dubs. Dubs in the chat. I think names are cool because, like, my name's common, like, stupid common. But, like, there are other names you hear. Even like the common ones, or like the ones that could be considered common. You don't even see them that often, right? But then also, there are just some really unique names out there. Like I don't know, like Veronica, not a like a. I guess I would classify it as uncommon, but I don't know when I've ever met somebody named Veronica. You know what I mean? Like like one of my old leads at my job, he transferred to a different department, but his name is Ismael. He's actually Hispanic, but I've never met anybody with that name until I met him. You know? You love the Pia profile pic? Why is it staring into your soul? It's Ian. He just awakened. This my stream profile pic. This my stream image. That's Stream J. On the videos, y'all get Shay. Y'all get Shay J. This Ian J. How old am I? I'm 23. I turned 23 in October. W birthday. Okay, so I know we're just gonna be sitting here yapping, but oh wait, hold on. The thing starts at what time? 6. I'll probably still get there at like 6:30. You're at like 5ish. Okay, cool. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. So I think since we don't really like versus ideas, I do have some like versus ideas we could actively discuss and like imagine how they would go, considering the information we actually have on the characters, right? Like not like matches that don't really make sense, but some of them that actually do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a quick thumbnail. I'm gonna make a quick thumbnail that I'm gonna put up, and I guess we'll like talk about one of those, right? You know my name, Jay, and it's unfortunately tied to an old YouTuber. Wait, which one? Oh, never mind. That clicked instantly. Oh man. Yeah, he's cooked. He's actually cooked. The reason I'm doing versus ideas is because I could, in theory, do them as videos, but it's also kind of cool to look at some of them during like stream and get a sort of more raw feel and approach to like the actual discussion, right? As opposed to like thinking, okay, well, like I guess instead of doing it more like by myself, it'd be interesting to like kind of look at it with y'all that we stream. All right, so let me get this image real quick. Let me get some images. It would be kind of trash if I didn't have any good ones. Okay, ranked. Wait. Yeah. This is a W pick. This is a W pick. Is it a W pick? Wait, you'll be back. You're eating right now? Bro's already eating. W. What's good? What's good, Vision? That name is still so funny. What's good, Vision? We'll just call you Vision. I got called that once in middle school. Hated it, and I don't even think that event happened yet. What? You mean to ask, why do you believe that the other Great Four talents will not help out Shay in the final battle? They either won't be around. If Shay is the plan, it doesn't make sense for the other Great Four to be a part of the battle, I guess, in my opinion. It doesn't feel necessary if Shay can kind of do it himself, basically. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel, or not that it doesn't make sense, but it also doesn't feel necessary anymore. Like the way this season is structured, it doesn't feel necessary. From like all aspects, from a power aspect, from a writing aspect, from a, I guess maybe even like a character aspect, like the individual characters. I think I have an image of the people I want to talk about here. Let's see if I do. And let's see if I have a... hold on. Let me remember where it would be at. So I think it'd be my all. There we go. Wait, finished brainstorming on the script. So dub. That's how they did it last time. I mean, like, wait, before it did it last time, so why wouldn't they do it now? That's how they did the first time ever. The first time ever. But that doesn't mean, but they also lived during that time. They literally might, like Vatic and Kevin could be dead by the time Shay is supposed to fight Thanatos. Um, are we cooking and eating today? More ways than one. I'm not sure if I like how this image looks in terms of quality, but that's not what matters here. I'll try to lock in, but I'm going to be sleeping this weekend. That makes sense. Wait, gotta ask how the power system, is it like Hunter x Hunter? You talking about Ordeal? Like Ordeal power system, is it like Hunter x Hunter? Kind of. I would compare it to Hunter x Hunter to a certain degree. But like not really at the same time. Well, yeah. Yeah, I think. You've never seen what? Oh, yeah, you can kind of compare it to Ordeal and Hunter x Hunter. You can kind of compare their power systems. I actually used Hunter x Hunter as a comparison point in a comment to show how expansive the power system of Ordeal actually is. The thing about Ordeal as opposed to Hunter x Hunter is that the power system can be like the abilities and like the not I guess like techniques or like the actual talents, they can be shared across generations and people as opposed to Hunter x Hunter. Like Hunter x Hunter is even more individualized. Like what are they called? Hatsu? I think, oh, they're literally just called Nen abilities. So my Nen ability and your Nen ability will never ever be the same, right? They'll never be the same because we're not the same individuals, right? Like Hunter x Hunter makes it so that even twins who can use Nen, who develop Nen abilities, will develop them completely differently, right? But from a basic standpoint, outside of like the actual abilities, um, there are certain things like the Nen reinforcement and like rock armor and like kind of chi reinforcement, similar concept. Though I would compare that more to like Haki than their sort of reinforcement because the reinforcement in Hunter x Hunter is even more percentage based. And you could apply that logic to Ordeal. It just hasn't been shown in that way technically. It could be the case for some characters, but it's just not that way for the actual series, like as a whole. It's not hasn't been fully depicted like that, right? At least not in like not in that specific sort of aspect. You could imply it for like certain things, of course, like Sun through Moon with nearly 100% use of Ilios's chi, like something like that, but not for like most abilities or not for like most characters. Like that sort of depiction just isn't accurate for everybody. It's only sort of accurate for like Kong sort of percentage shift like that, right? Um, but I do think there's like a good comparison to draw, especially in terms of sort of like the uniqueness a talent can have. Um, but the way the base aspects of the power system are set up with the types for each series allows for a lot of expanse, right? There's a lot you can do, and all you really have to do is make it make sense. Like you can make a talent, like the fact that a dimensional void can be its own power system or like its own talent and come with unique abilities just because it's linked to a dimension is crazy. That by itself is insane, right? You can do so much with that. I have myself have already done so much with that, right? Crazy. Um, What other webtoon do y'all read? Yeah, what y'all be reading? Okay, Nora said DBZ X Hunter has its complexities, but it's generally simple but complicated at the same time. Favorite aspects of Ordeal? Um, I'd say the art and the biblical and not implications. That's not the word. It's not lessons either. I wouldn't say connections. The biblical connections. The way Brent will put biblical things in the story is very unique and interesting to me. It's not. I'm not saying it hasn't been done before, but it hasn't been done in such a way that it can reach the masses. Even people who aren't Christian are forced to interact with it in a certain capacity through this story. And I think that's kind of interesting because it never feels like too much, except for maybe 145, but I'll disagree with that forever. But I could be biased because I'm Christian. Doesn't bother me though, right? So I think that's what makes Ordeal, right? Outside of obviously like the power system and the what's call it, the like the characters and stuff, things of that nature. Okay, I'm actually gonna minimize this. I'm gonna maximize. Excuse you? There we go. Wait. I was wondering how the talent could manifest like a hammer or arrows without being a creation type. I think dual typings allow for talents to be a lot more unique slash creative. I agree. But it's mostly because like you would essentially just throw on another type because that type explains how an ability works, basically. At least that's how I see it. That's also kind of how Brent described it as well, so it just makes sense. Because if you're like, I want my talent to do X, Y, and Z, or if you make a talent do X, Y, and Z, it automatically will fall into one category, and then you kind of look at some of the like finer details, and you're like, okay, it also does this, so it falls into this category as well, right? I was wondering how the talents would could manifest like a hammer without being creation type. So chi itself is technically what's the word I'm looking for? Chi is kind of chi, like just chi as its own thing is sort of all encompassing. Everything everybody does in this series comes from chi, right? So creation as a type isn't that like it's not that what's the word I'm looking for? Creation like in a sort of in a broader sense, like almost everything everybody does is creation in some way, right? However, creation talents are sort of specified in how they operate and how they sort of work, right? Um, if we look at Cass is literally bringing matter, like new matter, or he's essentially transmuting something. He's literally taking one thing and then creating it to be something entirely different, right? And he can no longer reverse it. He can no longer reverse it, right? So, but that's something like not every talent type can do essentially. Like not every talent type can do that. Not every talent type can take one thing and then make it something completely else, right? What's another good creation type? Another good and so the definition or like the description of creation types is molding new matter from chi, right? So another good example is is um is I know her name, but I just can't think of it right now. Okay, it's May. May's talent, with Hand of Creation. May is literally, whether you want to say she's gifting talents, whether you want to say she's granting talents, whether you want to say she's May, at least from how I see it, especially how it looks with the description, May is literally creating a talent purely based off the individual who it's being received from. Um, Outside of like Ian, for example, Ian's kind of different because his talent. You could even argue that Ian's talent. Well, we don't know the specifics of it, but you could potentially argue that Ian also falls into that sort of category, right? Like, she's literally forming a talent, something only God can do. He's literal creation of a talent from literally nothing but chi and personality, or personality type, or character traits or characteristics. Like, that is what makes it creation, right? Um, Another thing to sort of look at with like creation types as opposed to every other type is creating something the primary thing it does, right? Like, Lewis is a creation and a range control type, but he was a range control type first because dominating matter, especially from a distance, or Lewis isn't he creation? Yeah, I'm about to talk about. Dominating matter from a distance with his ash is the primary aspect of his talent. But he also can create things, right? He literally forms ash creatures and ash objects, right? Especially with the lance. Lance is a really good example because it just isn't the same even coloration as like everything else he makes, right? So he's not just, he's also taking matter that exists and turning it into something else. But creation, when we see his talent, it's not its primary function, right? You could say Tevin's new ability with creatine is almost creation. Or wait, creatine, the keratin, the shields and stuff, it's almost creation, but it's not really at the same time because it's still an aspect of his hide, right? It's still a technical aspect of something his hide technically already produced itself, right? So he's not really creating it, I guess, or not fully in the same sense, right? He's more so manipulating it or forming what already existed, right? I think what's another good example? But yes, that's kind of what you want to look at. Like, what is the talent's primary function? What is its primary way of operation? And for a lot of the talents themselves, it's not sort of creating something entirely new in the way that creation talents kind of can, right? Um, there's also like a unique, I guess not fully unique, but like specific things where it's like, okay, what does a talent do? Okay, oh, it would just be creation by default. Fuck John Ellie. So I actually want to look at what's his name? Jamie. Major Jamie. Jamie's talent is creation, right? And it's described as in the webs are described as physical manifestations of chi. It's like one of the few things in the series that's kind of described that way, right? So another example of like things like that is hide types. Hide types are literally a chi formed shell, right? But it's a shell. It's a hide, right? In concept, right? But the way Jamie's talent works is it's literally creating red webs out of chi. That's its entire purpose, right? it wouldn't fall into any other category because its primary function is creating red webs, right? As opposed to Tevin or Bjorn with their hide types, where they're literally forming a chi shell. Yes, a chi shell is being created, but it's being formed around them, right? Creation wouldn't really fall into its primary function in my opinion, right? The way a high type is described, it makes more sense for there to be a separation between different aspects of creation, essentially. Do I have any creation talents in my story? I do actually. So, in a similar manner to Jamie, where he can make red webs of pure chi, or yeah, of chi. I have a female character that I actually talked about. Was that yesterday on stream? That I mentioned yesterday on stream, I think, where her talent literally creates chi flowers. Their flowers are literal, like completely made of chi, right? And the way that works, it would only be creation. It wouldn't be any other type, right? She wouldn't be running fast. She's not moving faster because of them. She's not well, she is technically a support talent, but I digress. Um she's not forming a shell from them. She's not you know, controlling things with her mind because of it or interacting with it. You know what I mean? Like that's the point, right? So when you think of talents or creation, or you know, certain like why talents are certain types, think of their primary function, right? How do they operate? Does it make sense for them to fall into a certain category? I think there are certain talents that based on operation can fall into other categories, and they kind of should have been categorized that way, right? I think especially for the series and the way it's depicted, um Janelli would be a great example. Janelli would be like the perfect example of a talent that was miscategorized, right? It just miscategorized, right? Um, Another example of creation would be Lath. His talent literally creates paper paste. Now, and obviously it's all moldable, but he's literally creating paper paste. Like, do we even use anything similar to what paper paste is in real life, as opposed to, like, I don't know, actual paper or paper mache? I think it's even described as a fluid too, but we don't have to go there. But yes, that's my take on creation talents. I hopefully that makes sense. And in the grander scheme of things, always remember, you know, what is a talent's primary function. Um, I'm not saying Jose can't be a high type, but it's like uh, he could be something else. Like State kind of would have been better. You know what I mean? Like State would have been a little bit more perfect in my opinion, right? Um, but sure, Hide of Rebirth, I guess. No description, by the way. You know what? I used the wrong image in this. I gotta fix this. Now that I'm thinking about it, I want to be more image accurate. So let's actually let's go ahead and delete that real quick. Let's delete that real quick. Somebody said it. The way I see it, May is pulling a talent from the creation room, but unlike God or Jesus that bestows them specifically, she is granted one reflective of their heart/soul. From the creation room, but unlike God or Jesus that bestows them specifically, she is granted one reflective of their. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. You said, see you later. Bye bye. Wasn't Ephialtes creation also creation? Yeah, he was literally creating, and he's creating whole life forms basically with their own autonomy, their own intentions, their own like ways of reacting to things. Like he's creating literal life forms, right? I knew I didn't want to use that image of Tevin. It was tough, but it would be inaccurate. Okay. Maybe if I pull from the explained, it'll be better. Wait, hold on. Is it Purgatory over Ephialtes? I don't know about all that one. Wait, ranked. Oh no, explained. Where is that at? Here. Right, let's see if I have a proper image of Tevin. I think this is the only good one. Low key. Because this would be season 1. These will all be season 1. I'm on season 2, so I think this is a good one. Tevin wallpaper, might have to get on that. Yeah, I should definitely do that one. Should definitely do that indeed. Let me rename this real quick. Whoa, why does it look like that? Ew. Sheesh. Anyway, okay. Okay, let me move this here. Then we will switch subjects. Very, very easy discussion. Oh, I actually think I minimized it. I did. Okay. A very easy, very simple discussion, but one that's going to be fun to discuss nonetheless. All right. And we have. Do you think. Who? Oh, I think you're supposed. I think you're trying to say kidding. Wait, I'm pretty sure I said that. So yes. But I guess it wouldn't be in a normal sense. Do you think Shay's sister could reach a level of God? Yes. Yukiko can become God tier because Brent said so. But that's a cop-out answer. So I'm gonna give you an actual answer with actual facts. We are told at the start of the series that characters in the top 150 transfer their talents to maintain family bloodlines. And since they're being transferred and these individuals with the talents are staying in the top 150 levels of power, that means a talent always has the potential to reach the previous level, basically, or the level somebody else set for it. So Shay has already surpassed Leo's level, right? He's surpassed it. Of course, it was due to his own body, but even if Shay didn't have the Thanatos body as an aid, he still could have received the Bjorn training and still reached Leo's level, right? That all of that is still possible, especially if we did it the same way, okay? With that being said, that same logic would apply to Yukiko with Hisame, because Hisame was built by Sabito. Another thing to take into account though is that Sabito was a prodigy with Hisame, so he was able to achieve great heights with it much faster because he was naturally gifted with using the talent. Yukiko is somewhat similar, but she is very smart, but her body can't match her brain just yet, right? But once she's in sync, she'll skyrocket basically. Now, a talent, when it is transferred, it doesn't gain a new limit based on the Kimyo. A talent's limit is its individual limit, right? Its limit is not linked to the Kimyo, right? How strong the talent gets is linked to the Kimyo, but the talent overall limit is essentially set. It's a set thing. You can argue limits are, can be increased naturally outside of, like a blood boost, but I'm not sure if there's any evidence of that outside of, characters who don't seemingly have a full limit, basically, right? Um, but the short and sweet of it is, because the talent is already a god tier level talent, Yukiko as an individual has the potential to reach that by virtue of owning the talent itself, right? She doesn't need anything else to basically say she has the potential to be a god tier level Kimyo. She has a talent that was once held by a god tier. It only makes sense that that same potential and power is still there. She just as an individual needs to get there. Skill is individually developed. So as her skills increase, her actual chi will increase, and as her chi increases, she will eventually reach her limit, right? Of course it is still nearly impossible, but if you can master your own skills, if you can master your own abilities, you can reach those levels, especially if they were already set. It's like if you know what your highest is, like let's just say if you know what your highest vert jump is, you can jump X high. But as you train and as you grow and as you develop, you can now jump Y high, right? Surpassing your limit, right? Being able to, or at the very least, being able to reach your limit, right? Reach what is perceived to be your max, right? I feel like that's a fair analogy. What are your overall thoughts on the class system getting introduced? Class system? Class system? Cameo racism? Question mark? Then you have to consider the talent saturation of ancient talents like Ilios. That only applies when talents sit in the ether, in my opinion. The ether is literally said to be a place that basically slowly takes away chi. Slowly takes away chi. So until chi eventually disappears from it, or until the talent's chi is eventually disappears, right? Is erased entirely. So talent saturation. Actually, I don't even think, is that how it's called? Was it talent saturation? I don't think he says saturation. I have to remember. And by remember, I mean fact check and look. Oh, he does say talent saturation. Would saturation be the right word to use for that, though? Anyway. Just because, if I really want to be specific, I would look up the definition of saturation, but I don't care that much. But in my opinion, that only applies if a talent sits in the ether for too long, right? So if a talent, that's also why I think some talents just don't reappear, because they basically died. They don't exist anymore. Their chi has been amassed into the ether and is probably being funneled back up into the creation room to be used as raw chi for another new talent, right? But ancient talents have a lot of chi, So their lifespan is far longer than something like, let's just say, Andrea's talent, or Tevin's talent, right? Or any of their talents on the screen, right? Because their talents are younger, they have less chi. So their capacity to stay alive in the ether would be theoretically less than an ancient or an older talent that has more chi, right? That's also why Mei is fearful of Sabito losing his family heirloom, because there's a potential that the talent will not reappear, and that it staying in the ether for too long will diminish its strength, eventually killing it. So Hisame could just die, right? Okay, you said since they said Shay has used the full power of Ilios, that means he has reached the chi limit of it. Or will it increase? Um, Shay reached his max in season 2. It was already stated that he was using the full power of Ilios. Shay reached his chi limit. Shay has and Ilios' statement of Vaal having chi equal or similar, whatever the statement is, to his, only reaffirms that, because it means that the current version of Shay at the time is using all the chi that Ilios has at the time, right? Or all the chi Ilios has, right? And he's fighting someone with chi comparable to him, right? But we also we are, I think, pretty sure 132 basically says that, or it's pretty much implied that the talent's chi can't grow. Like it can't be boosted by the other source of chi, which is the dance of chi. So no, the chi limit can't expand unless Shay got Vaal, the blood from Vaal. Then you could argue that the chi limit can be expanded, but outside of that, no. It was already stated to have a great limit, but a limit nonetheless. So there's a cap, and Shay has already reached it by virtue of being Shay, but mostly because of Bjorn's training. Do you think that Brent should only focus on Shay when he's showing us scenes of the future, or do you think he should show us other characters? It just depends on why he's focusing on Shay. I don't really care to see other characters. I don't really care to see other characters in the future. Not gonna lie. Like from a flashback standpoint, or I guess a flash forward standpoint, it doesn't really matter to me. If I had to pick, I would say focus on Shay, because current time in the story is flashbacks, whereas present time in the story is, or future time in the story is present. So it kind of makes sense for us to see the world more from Shay's perspective when we look at flash forwards, right? Or Tevin. Tevin is the only other character that it would make sense for that to occur with, right? But every time we flash forward, it's oh, you must be from New York, huh? Every time we see a flash forward, it's in relation to Shay. Like, it's in relation to future Shay, and I feel like that makes more sense than focusing on somebody who isn't the main character, or who isn't somebody that has something to, or yeah, isn't somebody that has something to do with the main character, right? Like, it doesn't make sense for us to see any of the god tier in the future. It can also technically spoil a little bit of what can or will happen, right? Yeah. What talent type do you think the Eye of Time falls into? Warp? I'm finna freaking ban the word pizza from chat just because of you, gang. Not gonna lie, you saying it too much. I mean, it's a like, y'all ain't watched my talent type video, huh? Where I went over every talent type. Where I showed one of the types being warp, that can distort matter, space, and time. kind of question is that game? And how do you imagine Shay using it in tandem with Ilios? Just depends on how the talent works. I can't really say for sure because there could be a myriad of ways it could work depending, or yeah, the myriad of ways he could use it in tandem with Ilios, just depending on how it operates, right? If it's yeah, and it's not even like so how do I want to say it? I actually lost my train of thought, so I'm done now. You know that fan art Oni character that Brent drew on IG a while ago? Yeah, I think so. It's like the character was black, right? But he had like an Oni, he either had an Oni mask on his on his face, like on the side of his face, or was like a part of his waist design. I don't remember. So this means Shay won't power up in terms of Ilios power. Never mind his Zahara, which somewhat increases his talent attributes. What I mean is the Anointed War State, the final form from your view. Anointed War State is just War State with gold. There's nothing more special about it. It's not an additional power boost. Anointed War State is War State, but God is blessing Shay's armor. He's anointing him. That's all it is. He's not granting him additional power because of it. It's simply War State with gold. Same power up, same design, different color scheme. Part of his waist, he had pointy ears and black. Yeah, I remember him. Was that like you? Did you commission that? Do you think Shay can train in the Ilios Mindscape like sparring? I think so. And I especially think so because it's kind of implied like Zahara can kill Ilios in his mind. So like, oh, we also have the image of Ilios literally getting ready to fight in his mind. So it just makes sense that he could, like, training would be possible. Training mentally was something I wanted for, I think I had mentioned this to Faceless, and I thought that would be interesting. But also that concept would be cool for Ian too, right? Or it would have been cool for Ian, but Brent don't like Ian, so it doesn't really matter. Hell no, I didn't commission that, but I want him to be a Gaki character though. Yeah, that's not happening, gang. You might have to hope and wish for even the concept to appear in Brent's mind for that one. All future statements are Tevin, so you could say Tevin might be. I'm not gonna lie, you are for sure late. You might be late. Unless you're just putting your 2 cents in just now. It's clear to say Shay is stronger than the God tier, hence why he has classified rank. I wouldn't say that's why he was classified. I wouldn't say that's why he's classified. Because when he's ranked, he doesn't even have Zahara, for one, but they don't actually know the full extent of what Shay can do, so it doesn't really make sense for his rank to be classified because he's stronger than the God tier, in my opinion. At least not fully. Yeah, I feel like that would make more sense after he boomed everybody. Like, that'd make more sense. But he's like pre-ranked. I low-key think they classified his rank because they don't actually they don't know how strong he is. Or they don't want to give him like a top 3 spot, right? Because those spots are already filled. So they did something like semi-different. Instead of like making him unofficial, they just classified his rank and just basically put a question mark next to it. because where he would actually go is already filled, essentially. That's how I see it, at least. And you could say that same thing with Yukiko. I'll actually mention this in the review, but Yukiko probably shouldn't have been ranked. Low-key doesn't make sense because Azam and Lewis also aren't ranked. Yukiko doesn't also need a classified rank. And I think the only reason she's ranked is because she has Hisume. And that's kind of stupid. Like, I'm not saying... I don't want to say a character's rank isn't relevant, but for her specifically, it's not. It's not relevant at all. It literally has no relevance to what she does at all. But if we use Lewis or Azam, the rank would have a little bit more. It would make more sense, and would have a little bit of credence or justification based on their showings, right? Yeah, it would just make more sense for them. Like Tevin and Anton being ranked, it makes sense because they were a part of a war. But what they do in the season, especially for Anton, their rank never mattered. It just doesn't matter at all. It's also inaccurate, which is another thing I'll mention in my review. Their ranks are just inaccurate, right? It doesn't feel right to give them ranked numbers. I should say it doesn't feel right. It feels disingenuous to give them ranked numbers off of feats they performed in the war when they're getting stronger. When they're getting stronger, when they haven't kind of actually reached their individual pinnacles, right? As opposed to their talents pinnacle, they haven't reached their individual pinnacles. Like somebody like Andrea, it kind of makes sense for her to be ranked where she is when we meet her, and for her rank to be revealed, because it's implied in the flashback of episode 20. Was it 24? I think it's 24 or 25. I think it's 24. Where it's implied that Andrea kind of mastered her talent with the aid of Pandora's chest to the best of her abilities. So she reached her own individual skill limit, but not her talent's actual, limit itself. At least from how I see it, right? And then they gave her a rank, so it doesn't feel fully genuine and generous for them to give them a rank based on war feats, because somebody like Anton doesn't even use his full power in any real capacity during the actual war, during the actual Greenland War, and as opposed to the ball, he doesn't even use his shift. He's not even showcasing his true power. He showcased what he could do at a base. And while and even Tevin doesn't use Lionhide Overdrive again. He even uses a base like a regular Lionhide against Goro. He also shows the ability to manifest his hide far from himself, and he accesses the other forge he has, right? Which puts him on evil foot. I think their rank should have been closer to Kaguya's old rank, basically, right? If I were to do it, I would have put them under 102 or somewhere in that 100 to 105 range, right? That way we get a more accurate gauge of their strength, right? Because they're too low, or because the ranks we get are too low, and it's not accurate to what they display in the actual season, nor is it accurate to their current strength after 8 months of training, right? It would have been also kind of cool if they got ranked after, like before, slightly before, because then we could see, why they're being ranked at the levels they were, right? That's another sort of, I don't think it's a missed opportunity, but it could have been a cooler way to do it like that, right? Like it would have also answered how cameos are ranked, and instead of us still wondering how that process works. How's my day been so far? It's been good. I was at work. I woke up at 4. I went to work at 5. Um, Work was kind of smooth for the most part. The slight little busy marks here and there, but overall just very smooth. And I got to leave early. Why do you think the Great Four talents are going to die? Obviously, we're talking about the rest of the Great Four talents, not Shay talent. Explain why you think the others are going to die. They have no purpose. They simply have no story purpose now. So I'm not saying it's right to kill them off, but I'm saying there's nothing you can do with them that Shay can't do himself now. That's it. It's that simple. If Shay didn't get the purple flames, maybe, but even then, the way it's written, it's still implied that, like, we obviously, even if the season were to end with the prophecy that was mentioned in the plan that was mentioned in episode 114, it still makes more sense for the whole series to end with a Shay Thanatos conflict and not a Shay Katakida Okeanos Thanatos conflict. Just makes way more sense. You got to think of it from those sort of lenses. What could Thanatos, or what could Katakida or an Okeanos bearer give to Shay that Shay doesn't have right now? Shay has one of the Great Four, a body with basically infinite stamina, right? He basically has infinite stamina. I guarantee the only reason Shay is sleeping right now is because his chi was consistently being diminished and he was poisoned by Baal's dagger, right? If that didn't happen, Shay would be perfectly fine right now. So he has a body with infinite stamina. He has two talent weapons. He has two talent weapons. He has one of them being able to boost the talents he already has innately, which is a Great Four talent. And he now has purple flames. And he gets the Eye of Time, right? I also was asked, I think it was a question in relation to the prophecy, but if we need 3 great powers, and it doesn't technically say that the Great Four have to beat Thanatos, like it does, but it's also implied it doesn't have to be that way. Especially since it's looking like Shay is not gonna get them. It's kind of okay for us to also say that 3 great powers that are needed to beat Thanatos, Shay will eventually have all 3, and they just won't be the Great Four. They won't be the other Great Four talents, right? One is for sure going to be the Eye of Time, and one is for sure Ilios, right? You could say one is Shay's body, you could say one is Zahara, whatever you think it is, it doesn't really matter. Shay will essentially have 3 things that are not the other Great Four talents outside of Ilios that will help him defeat Thanatos. And we don't have anything to do. We don't have anything for Okeanos and Kevin to do. If Kevin were still like in the story, or if it wasn't written the way it was written, I would have Kevin fight Konos right now. Whether he lives or dies doesn't fully matter, but it could be a good way to show off Kevin, show off Katakida, and I lost my train of thought again. Hold on, let me find my train of thought. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, not sure where I was going. You said don't forget Vinter. Vinter isn't a great talent weapon, or a great power in my opinion. It's just another talent weapon. Like, yeah, only 3 Chemios can wield it because of its immense cold. But in comparison to Ilios, I wouldn't call it great, especially because Ilios's full heat can basically potentially destroy it. We also see it get destroyed by Veal. So it's like you could even imply because of that, Veal himself in Dothanil is just a greater talent than Vinter. So like Vinter's not a great power in my opinion. But then again, we don't know how the purple flames work. Well, I mean, we do. We haven't seen him use them well. I mean, we have, but you know what I'm trying. I really don't know what you're trying to say at all, actually. I'm not even gonna lie to you. But just from a conceptual standpoint, if the purple flames have no nerf and Shay can choose when Zahara boosts him, you know, it's like if Zahara is just always in agreement the way Ilios is, which I think would be slightly bad writing, slightly, then Shay can use the purple flames whenever he wants. And he's essentially capable of burning Thanatos out of existence. What would Kevin or what would Shay need Kevin or Vatic for? Especially now. Especially now. If he didn't have that beforehand, you know, killing them would kind of be more of a debate, right? More of a debate. Yeah, it would definitely be more of a debate. But Shay just acquired something that makes them as like a concept just useless outright. Brent can't really do anything with them anymore. In regards to Thanatos, he can only do something with them in regards to like Gaki or Gaki class Kimios, right? Jay, can we theorize? You will loop or direct my views. Cool. What does that mean? Hey, low-key spitting. How much of a problem do you think Konos will be? Konos is a problem. Konos is a problem. I low-key like Vatic. He has nice eyes, paws. Never cared about Vatic. I don't know how I feel about Shay being that strong because now he has no comp. I agree. Shay shouldn't be that strong. Shay shouldn't be this strong right now. He shouldn't. You could even argue he shouldn't have been as strong last season, but that has its own nuance and it's already too late. But Shay shouldn't be this strong this fast, right? I don't like Shay shouldn't have an implication of being able to kill the other god tier, basically, right? Like he shouldn't. Well, not even as an implication of feat. He shouldn't. We shouldn't have got something like that. It makes way more sense for Shay to either have purple flames or, you know, the sort of multi-gaki god tier killing feat come from when Shay is a Ronin. He is not that strong. Yeah, sure. W cope. Vatic with his AoE and Kevin is also AoE. Okay. What is fire? Is fire not also AoE? Everything that Vatic, Kevin, and Ilios, or I should say, Vatic, Kevin, and Shay can do with their talents can be AoE, or they can be directed. If Thanatos still has his dead army, then that's why. Yeah, a bunch of dead soldiers that could only fight humans? The only way that's like relevant is if Thanatos uses that ability on the other Gaki or, you know, previous dead strong characters, which is actually a cool concept, but that as an ability is basically irrelevant. It would be cool though. It would be cool to see him use that on other soldiers. Like let's just say it would even be cool for him to do that against on like god tier Kimios that died. Like, you know what I mean? Like that would also be cool. I had another point, but I forgot. You trying to see Tevin and Anton do something? Hey bro, it's already too late. Maybe we can beg Shay to, or beg Shay, basically. Maybe we can beg Brent to like do a one shot of like what training looks like for Anton, Tevin, and them. What I was trying to say is that we've only ever seen the Purple Flames once. We don't know how they work. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm telling you, their concept alone makes everything that any other character, any sort of aid that Shay can have useless. The Purple Flames literally burned the Widow's Night talent, right? It was still partially wrapped around what's her name, but its little tendrils that it was shooting out, they got burned. And then the talent itself ceased to exist because it was burned away. If Shay can apply that to Thanatos, in with any of his attacks that we've seen previously, there is nothing that Thanatos can do. Like, the only way you can conceptualize like we don't know what the Purple Flames can do is if he can't use them again, which would be somewhat stupid, but that like their concept alone makes Thanatos of no genuine threat to Shay. So Thanatos will probably gain more things, but right now in current time, if Shay and Thanatos interacted, Shay could kill him. Brent probably thinks differently, but I mean, you know, it just is what it is. Like, you gave him chi burning fire, talent slaying fire. The threat to the entire series can die because of that. Like, he can just die because of it. So regardless of like, we don't know how the Purple Flames work, or if we've only seen them one time was all we needed to understand what they do and the implications they have. There's nothing else we need from them to be like, oh, okay, well, you know, now we know such and such and such and such that leads to X, Y, and Z, right? Undead army can be broken though, not gonna lie, but I agree, it does nothing really. Yeah. Shay losing his arm there was fine. I agree, because he said, not gonna lie, I hate how Shay lost his arm. I'm not a fan of the girl he fought. I wish he lost it to Agaki maybe. No, doesn't really matter, because the implications of episode 127 basically implies that Shay kinda too much losing body parts. Aw, don't be a pansy. The implication is that basically Shay can't be, he quote unquote can't be damaged, right? He quote unquote can't be damaged. Whether that's true or not, I don't really care. But we literally see him use rock armor at a base level, and Jose can do nothing to him. He literally cannot damage him until he actually like focuses his attack, right? So he quote unquote can't be damaged, right? Even though we see it. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. But Shay losing his arm, and he doesn't, I don't know why y'all say he loses it to the girl like she's of some random, and as if she did it. Shay didn't lose his arm to her. He didn't lose his arm to her. I don't like that conception y'all have of people like Shay lost his arm to Rajani. Shay didn't lose his arm to Rajani. He lost his arm to the cursed talent, and he technically lost the arm to himself as he cut it off, right? Shay losing his arm to Agaki doesn't hold the same weight. It only sort of furthers the fact that he can, one, be damaged, and that who he's fighting is strong, right? But when Shay lost his eye, there was emotional weight to it because he lost it trying to protect someone, right? We have a similar thing here where Shay literally has to sacrifice his arm. He can't keep his dominant hand. He can't. Just like Andrea, he's right hand dominant. He literally has to cut it off. He has to let it go. He has to let it go, right? That's especially when it's to cursed chi. It's not like he can get in. He's not like he can take damage and then it can heal later because of Ilios healing, right? Because that's also the argument. Well, even if Shay, um, even if Shay loses like or is somewhat damaged from a cut or from some sort of attack that's supposed to target his arm, if it doesn't outright take the entire thing off, he'll just heal from it because of Ilios, right? So he literally has to lose his arm in a way that's very specific, and Curse Chi is that way because Ilios cannot do anything against Curse Chi the same way Ilios can't do anything against Veil's talent as a whole, right? He can only stop it, but like he said, if Veil maims him, he can't heal that, right? There's nothing he can do to that, right? So Shay has to lose his arm in a specific way because the implications of this season are it's like, how can Shay lose? Basically, it's like, how can Shay lose his arm? If it's not to Veil, how can Shay lose his arm? And Veil is still technically a part of it, right? But outside of more or less everybody else, there's no real way for Shay to lose his arm unless there's somewhat targeting his arm with full intent, right? Because he can't regen, right? He's not Konos or what's his name? Goro or that dog. He doesn't have regen. He only has a really good healing, right? But Shay defends now. Shay doesn't sacrifice his body, right? He learned not to do that. So that also adds to the other point of him getting rid of his arm, right? So the likelihood that Shay would lose his arm in an actual battle where someone was able to sort of catch him off guard and like now he lost his whole arm, it doesn't fully make sense. It doesn't make the most sense. But here, where there's emotional weight, there's a logical way for him to actually lose his arm and not be able to heal from the wound, right? And there's the biblical aspect of it too that I already discussed, right? So there's multiple factors in Shay losing his arm here, as opposed to him just losing it to somebody he's fighting, right? And like I said, him losing his eye to Veil, it's like the introduction to Shay being able to be damaged in the first place, for one. But also, two, it's sort of like a lesson and a reminder. That's also why he keeps the scars from, from his helmet and his shield, which is kind of dumb because he doesn't even keep the helmet anyway. But anyway, yeah, like there's emotional weight to him losing his eye because he's protecting Tevin, right? There's emotional weight to him losing his arm. I feel like because Shay lost his eye to Veil, everybody thought it was going to be, him losing it to some really strong character, but he basically lost it to himself. And what did he say? And John Adams said at the same time he was trying to save her, right? That's also kind of true too, right? He lost his limb in an attempt to save somebody else, right? There's a lot deeper aspect to it, and a lot of y'all not really hitting them like, you're not really hitting the deeper level of ordeal. Y'all some of y'all a little too surface level, right? That's why I'm here though. I can bring the depth. Pause. Okay, let me go back up, and then I'm actually just gonna switch subjects. I'm actually gonna talk about the pictures on the screen. Um, I think the purple flames can kill Konos. Why him, you might ask, but I fast pass. I already know. Um, and the backstory makes me think, yeah, I already know. But um, that actually was a spoiler, and that's not cool, gang. But outside of that, Shay can kill any talent, so he can just kill any talent. The question really comes is, can he kill? Like, can he can he kill people with those flames as well? Like, does it work also on like individual humans slash kingdoms, right? Or would it also just kill them by proxy because they're burning their talent? He's burning their talent. He's basically erasing their power source, right? A little bit of a sort of debate there. I think they would just die as a result because it's not a talent transfer, but they are still losing their talent, right? It's like a different form of a forced talent extraction, basically, right? But yeah. Okay, he said he needs to ask a Japanese anime studio named Studio Le Douce that produce Clavadis. I've never heard of that. But Warner were yeah ordeal. Geez, I cannot think. Webtoon just got a deal or some sort of collaborative deal with Warner Brothers, so we could be getting that Mortal Kombat treatment with Ordeal, and that would be perfect in my opinion. That would be perfect. Y'all seen those Mortal Kombat movies where like Liu Kang is the main character or Kenshi is the main character, or I don't think any Scorpion is the main character in any of them. But if y'all seen any of those animated movies, fire, fire. I might have to go back and look at the choreography to see if it would really match, but from what I remember, perfect. The animation style is basically similar to what we got with the little animation trailers from Webtoon's YouTube channel anyway. So I feel like this wouldn't be like a crazy shift. It just seems like a natural shift, right? But if they literally animate it any other way, all hell gonna be raised loose, bro. Mortal Kombat is goaded. MK11 and one is ass, but it's my childhood. Yeah, MK1 is ass. MK11 probably also ass, but I didn't actually play that one, so I don't really care. Um, I did play X actually. I didn't play a lot of X. My brother played more, but MKX was good though. And then I think MK9 is probably the most famous one. I thought of like maybe like Armageddon. I think yeah, that seems fair. All right, switching gears and looking at the actual image I have had on screen for probably an hour now. We're gonna look at Tevin Season 2 during the Greenland Ball versus each of the other Titans, aka Titan Generals. Now, in my ranking video of the Wolf Cubs from last season, I did say that Tevin and Andrea, if they switched opponents, they could likely still beat them. Everything about that's true, right? And we're just gonna look at Tevin versus each of them, as he was in season 2, and really analyze this, right? So to start it off, I want to do Tevin versus Vince, which is him right here, right? So, and I want to be very clear when I say this. Vince stands no chance against Tevin. Vince stands zero chance against Tevin. Okay? First, Andrea in her fight is shown being able to dodge Vince's arms. She's shown being able to literally kind of grab onto them and use her own strength. So I don't think Vince himself has so much strength that it would actually affect Tevin, right? We also have a actual feat from Tevin able to sort of resist strength in his own right when he directly grabs the ground and stops himself from being flung by Ryu, right? So the move that Vince does against Andrea, where he literally flings her around, you could argue Tevin, if he did that more than once, Tevin would be able to learn and figure out how to keep himself from being slung around, right? So there's that. Um, Another point is Vince doesn't have a lot of AP feats. He's not that his with his actual arms, he's not very offensive. He can't do much attacking with them outside of slapping people against the walls basically. And while it does affect Andrea to a certain capacity, she's also a skilled cameo in her own right, to the point it's basically nothing. It's like she got slapped and she ate the hit, right? That would happen with Tevin as well. And on top of that, he will be using Rhino Hide, and most likely, with Rhino Hide also in this same fight sequencing, has been shown to adapt. Now it does grow heavier, but that was also shown as not being a problem for him. So if Tevin gets any form of damage on him, it's just it's just not gonna work because his hide will, one, be adapting and will be growing stronger as a result, and two, the actual feats themselves, the actual feats, what's his name? Vince displays doesn't really show that he has the potential to fully damage his Rhino hide anyway, right? What are we discussing? Just got here. Was good. We're looking at Tevin 1v1ing each of the other Titan generals for funsies. Right now we're talking about Tevin versus Vince, which is the guy on the left. So I feel like with all of that understood, if you also we all I didn't technically talk about Vince's gun, like the barrel throat thingy, but like it's not gonna get through his hide. It's not gonna get through his hide. And if it does, he will adapt to it. Like he actually will adapt to it, and it will grow sturdier in response. So what does Vince do against that, right? Now, of course, Vince, it's not like, his arms can be slashed, right? But they can be damaged, right? So you might be able to make an argument that, Tevin can punch them hard enough to make them damaged. I wouldn't say that. I feel like it's not a fair assessment. However, it's very likely that Tevin will use a thunderclap, which he does use in that season with Rhino Hide. So it's likely he'll use a thunderclap either to kind of put Vince at a sort of off angle and kind of make him unbalanced, or he'll try to see what it will do to his arms. And I'm pretty sure it's somewhat implied that the thunderclap technique, I guess regardless of if it's lion hide or rhino hide, it does some sort of actual damage. Like it does do, it looks like it has damage potential, right? Outside of the environment, which is what we see in season 2, it looks like it has potential to actually damage the Kimyo, if they're weak enough, right? Ryu just so happened to actually be like stronger, right? But I digress. So with that out the way, there's nothing that Vince can do against Tevin, even in just Rhino Hide. He'll, even if he eats his hits, or even if he hits him, he'll be eating them and adapting. His bullets, if they are effective, won't be effective anymore. And at some point, Tevin will be able to get close enough to Vince to land the finishing blow. or at least pin him in getting Vince to sort of, admit defeat, which is what he would want to do. But even if he doesn't, Tevin in that season does actually kill Ryu. So it's very possible that he just says the wrong thing or doesn't admit defeat and he kills him, right? So you could also debate that as well. But either way, Tevin's base Rhino Hide alone, just it's enough to stop Vince. There's nothing Vince can do, right? Yeah, and that feels fair to say. There's nothing he can do. Um, at some point, Tevin will just get too close to Vince, which is somewhat Vince's also like weakness, because when Andrea gets close to him, he tries to turn around and shoot her, but once he realizes he's out of bullets, he can't do anything. Right? He can't actually do anything. Um, she also did stab one of her her sword into his shoulder, which put him at a further disadvantage. But I I personally do not think that Vince has any sort of close combat capabilities that would really, make the fight more even in that regard. But um, Tevin can sort of clear Vince easily, in my opinion. Maybe mid difficulty if you want to give him a little bit more credit. Um, with just Rhino Hide though, with just Rhino Hide, right? And you could argue Rhino Hide would be better than Lion Hide, but Lion Hide should be faster, so it would technically allow for um, Tevin to actually get in closer a lot faster and sort of end the fight a lot quicker, right? But I don't even think he would need to use it because he was actually able to stand up pretty well against Ryu, right? And I feel like Ryu is actually the strongest of them all. So if he can sort of damage Ryu, then he can damage Vince when he gets close enough, right? Uh, this is a difficult fight because the only big reason Andrea won was because of her 5% Ilios boost. Uh, Technically not true. I'm gonna say technically not true. You could argue that she could do the same sort of impact without the boost, right? Um, you could argue it. But all the Ilios talent actually does in the fight is create more openings for her. That's all it does. That's all it does. Yeah, at least in my opinion. No, like I said, you could argue that the boost does is the reason she's able to get the sort of knockout, but I mean, it doesn't really matter because she already had his arm pinned, and she could kind of do whatever she wants to him after that, right? She could just beat him to a pulp. She could, break his other arm, yada yada yada, right? But yeah, I digress. Tevin clears. Tevin can outlast Vince if he stays in Rhino Hide, taking his attacks until he uses his fight IQ to create an opening and knock him out. Exactly. All right, moving on to Sota, which is the guy on the right. Now, Sota actually has like I don't want to say he has a better chance, but he definitely does provide more of a difficulty. Simply because, unlike Vince, Sota actually displays close quarters capabilities. And from what I like from actually, um, that's not a problem for Tevin because he does fight Ryu and Ryu uses a large axe. So it's not like it's going to be an ultimate problem for him, but it will be more annoying to deal with, right? It will be more annoying to deal with, right? Um, you may be able to argue that Vince's chi bullets or any of his like his pressure saber could actually get through Rhino Hide. You may be able to argue it. I don't think it's very definitive in my opinion, but even Tevin being slammed hard enough on essentially just concrete was able to crack his Rhino Hide mask, right? So you could genuinely argue that the wind bullets or a pressure saber would actually bypass the did I say rock armor? His Rhino Hide. However, that's where Rhinohide's adaptability kind of comes in, right? Though this is also sort of like working against him because Sota actually, from what I remember, he's kind of fast. I mean, he's able to keep up with Shay, but then again, so is Tevin, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue, but he is being weighed down more, so it's something to make note of, right? It's genuinely something to make note of. We did see Tevin dodge actual hits from Ryu with his axe. You could argue that those attacks are slower because his axe is so huge, and with Vince simply just holding his handle and not the actual weight of the wind itself, in my opinion, he'll be able to attack much faster, which could lead to Tevin sort of being caught off guard or nicked with his Rhino hide. But then again, like I said, his hide should be able to adapt to that sort of damage at some point, but it will be slowing him down. One thing, actually, do I remember? I don't think. I'm trying to remember if Tevin actually ever uses a slam, but he doesn't. So I'm not. It's not in character. I think it's possible, but we have seen Tevin even from season 1. He's able to endure hits until he finds an opening. So even if Tevin is too slow to fully react to Sota when he's actually hitting him, at some point Tevin will find an opening, or he'll wait for the right time to deliver a hit that will cause either severe damage or completely throw off Vince's or Sota's rhythm, right? And with that being said, that gives Tevin the chance to actually go on the offensive himself, right? And we see when Tevin goes on the offensive with Rhino Hide, he can deal very good damage. He makes Ryu bleed and deal successful hits multiple times, right? Multiple times. And you could argue that, yeah, you could argue that Ryu is just more durable, or he's more tanky than everybody else on here, except for maybe Jirohime. So enough good hits, I think, will eventually put Sota down. And I feel like that's fair to say. I mean, he does get his head taken off. He also gets his arms blown off, but that kind of comes to like an argument of like, do you think Tevin has enough AP in his punches to sort of do the same thing that Shay does, basically? Potentially, but I won't say that. I won't say it. I think it's possible, but it's not super definitive, right? I do think this fight has a potential to be a lot more difficult as a base level, because Vince offers ranged and close quarters fighting, with it actually being more likely that his Rhino hide can be bypassed, right? So I'm gonna give Vince, or I'm gonna give Sota low, maybe more likely mid difficulty, but Tevin should be able to get the W as well, right? However, the next fight is very, 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 very difficult. Not difficult if it's all 3 versus Tevin, then they win, but 1v1 Tevin wins mid diff. Which is exactly why I'm only doing 1v1s, because whatchamacallit is unfair. Or yeah, it's unfair. Maybe a little necessary, but you could also argue something else that I can bring up. My only issue with Tevin's Black Fort is that it saps his blood, and since he doesn't have regen, I feel like he'll never be able to fully master that ability. Just unlikely. I mean, he literally becomes a god tier, which means he does. So that's kind of inaccurate to say, basically. There's also a potential way you could circumvent it, but I don't know. We also didn't we just get a god tier level healing statement? We've also seen other characters heal. Yeah. Though healing was never Tevin's whatchamacallit. Tevin actually does have, I guess, what you could consider good healing. Um as Wolfnara points out, that Tevin actually has a scar that's healed from the slash, the anatomic level slash that Rokash sends at him. So you could argue that Tevin has sort of like has like good regen, good healing, right? I don't really know how long it took for that to heal, but he does. It is there, right? It is there, right? But I don't think you could use. I don't think you could fully use regen as a way to make that ability null. Unless he, I guess he, on an individual level, uses his own biological regen to only regenerate the blood, right? So I guess it would look like his heart giving out from pumping too much blood, right? Or from pumping, too much blood, and then he not having actually any enough energy to pump more, and then his heart basically explodes, and then he like regenerates it, right? But that's not as good. It's not as good. It's not as good. Though it's also possible he uses blacksmith forge like differently from his other hides, keeping the sort of drain and blood cost to a minimum, right? It kind of depends, but I think you could circumvent it through. I think he could low-key circumvent it through Rhino hide, like low-key, but it just depends. But he does become a god tier, so like the statement of him not fully mastering it should just kind of be slightly untrue. Slightly. Yeah. And you can't even equate it to like Bjorn, who has never actually seen the hammer, but his talent, and like, so he can't train it, but his talent directly makes it so that he doesn't need to train it. He'll live after its use, and then according to Brent, it's a one-time use, so he just won't ever be able to use it again, right? So, but it's even more likely that Tevin at that level can hold Blacksmith Forge for a long time, as opposed to the literal minutes he actually does hold it in season 2, which is even longer than he held it, and even more than what he did than when that season started, because he could only clad his arm, and then he clads his arms and his legs, and he does just, he actually covers his back, and he actually has the full pistons, and he fights Kaguya with Anton and Shay for who knows how long, right? I guess like, I think maybe an hour, but I'm not really sure on the timing on that. But he does fight them for a long time. So we got Sota at low mid diff. We got Vince at, actually I'd say Sota mid diff. We got Vince at low diff. It's especially low diff because his bullets aren't anything crazy. Like if they were the Kimyo AP bullets right now, that'd be a different story, right? But the real problem is Jirohime. And the problem with Jirohime is I'm putting Tevin in the fights as if he were the Kimyo that was fighting them, right? So if he replaces Anton, he would be fighting her basically in her domain, right? And the only way he could do that, even semi-successfully, is if he uses Lionhide. He can't fight her, in my opinion, with Rhinohide. If this was season 3 Tevin, we could definitely argue something different. But he doesn't really show off the sort of like agility necessary to do something like that in Rhinohide. right? Not until season 3. So he likely has to use Lionhide to fight her, to even stay up in those sort of in the air and like kind of jump around and cling to different surfaces to sort of pull her into an area where he can actually face her, right? And the reason I'm saying Lionhide is like probably his only option is because he jumps decently high in the air to catch Anton and the minister, right? And he's able to still kind of land with a decent bit of, you know, sturdiness. Like he doesn't like feel hampered or whatever word I want to use right there by the actual fall, right? So if he were to follow Jurohime instead of Anton, he would likely be using Lionhide off rip. The only problem is that Lionhide will be eating away at his actual stamina. Um, and that's a problem because we don't really know how long he can last with Lionhide on, right? But he'll also be exerting himself even more because he's literally jumping in the air from like basically level to level as opposed to sort of like Anton jumping straight up and just like being able to land on Jurohime's webs with no difficulty because he's, you know, he now has Kong's monkey-like abilities and movements. Tevin doesn't have that. So he'll likely be sort of jumping from floor to floor and level to level until he gets to Jurohime. And even if he does the sort of like initial jump that Anton does, if he doesn't hold on, he'll fall, right, for one. But he still doesn't have Anton's movement. So he's going to have to kind of keep clinging back and forth between the floors to stay up and stay actually to stay up and to actually be of a threat to her, right? So we have to keep that in mind, right? That's like a sort of big part of their fight as a whole, right? Because the moment she kind of gets the one up on Anton, she can just send him seemingly tumbling downward, basically, right? So keeping this in mind, now if Tevin is leaping from level to level and attempting to fight, you know, Jurohime, he'll likely go for sort of tackle moves, right? I think that makes more sense than him sort of jumping around and trying to sort of hit her and like kind of clash and joust with her. That doesn't feel as accurate with me, right? Especially with his combat style, it doesn't make the most sense for him to simply jump and then try and punch, or at least not forever, right? At least not forever, right? At some point, he will try to actually grab her, right? At least in my opinion. Now, will that be possible? I'm not too sure. She can web him up if she chooses to. So if any wrong move or any, you know, off-putting move Tevin has while literally jumping from wall to wall trying to hit her, she can web him up, which is what she does to Anton. And the only reason Anton was able to escape from that is because he had Kong to summon, right? So essentially, the moment she does that to Tevin, he's kind of out of the fight, right? Now, there are two ways we could argue that he can get out of that. One is the sort of canonical way, which would be Blacksmith Forge. No, not Blacksmith Forge. Lionhide Overdrive, right? It makes sense. It makes sense that if he's sort of captured and hampered, and he can't do anything, he'll have a similar Leo-like moment where, you know, Tevin is sort of forced to rip himself out of her webs, right? I feel like that's fair to say. That feels kind of fair to me. And I think at that point, he'll actually have the upper hand, right? He'll actually have the upper hand. I say this because the moment he gains it, there's nothing Ryu can do. Especially if Ryu's considered the strongest, there's nothing Ryu can do. So there's nothing any of them would be able to do if Tevin was able to achieve that same form with Lionhide against any one of them, right? So if she does actually just web him up, he could get out of it. He could, in theory, get out of it, right? And when he does, if it's through Lionhide, he'll have the sort of same problem of like falling. Probably fall. I don't think he'll die, but he'll probably fall. But he'll also make his way back up. That seems kind of fair. We also see him sort of slash at Ryu with like chi or whatever you want to call that. So if he does fall, he might also send out a slash at her to stop her from getting to Pedersen, right? We see him throw out the slash at Ryu's leg, and it directly helps him attempt to make him submit, right? So you could argue that Tevin would figure out or understand that sort of cutting at Jirohime's legs would have a similar effect and would allow her to not really be able to sort of cling on and stay up in the air, right? Essentially, Overdrive. Essentially, Overdrive is Tevin's really his only win con. I don't think it's fully fair to say he would use or he would attempt to use Blacksmith Forge, especially because he actually needed time to sort of build it up. But that is also the other option, right? That's the other option he has for beating her if he webs him up, or if she webs him up. And the reason it's his only option is, the reason it's another option is because it gives him time to sort of attempt to try it, right? He needed time to attempt to try it against Kaguya, which is what Anton was holding off Kaguya for. So it's possible that he will actually, attempt to try it here, but we don't know how successful that would be. There's a big sort of like margin for error, in my opinion. I don't think it's just because he did it later, especially after a month, of training, doesn't mean he would be able to do it here, right? I think the more likely route is Lionhide with Overdrive, and I think he will likely try to, cut off her legs or maybe sever her lower half in a similar manner to Anton, right? And I feel like that will allow for a better chance at escape for her, but I think Pedersen might be I think Pedersen might actually be I think the information she gains from him may not be leaked, right? It may not be leaked. She also has her whatchamacallit, what is it called? She also has the poison darts. If she hits Tevin with any of those, he's done for. He's done for, definitively. He doesn't have a full means of dodging or blocking them at all. And we literally see when Kong actually tries to kind of get the one up on her, she cuts his staff in half and then puts like 3 poison darts in him. And we know Lionhide does not have the same level of durability as Rhinohide, because when he fights Rokash, he actually like bleeds, right? He actually bleeds. Rokash's whatchamacallit also gets through him, which you could imply that Rhinohide's durability supersedes Rokash's chi amped corrosive punches, right? To a certain degree. But Lionhide has no, like, it shows no form of resistance that we could like argue for, right? So this is a high difficulty fight, with Tevin's real only option in like means of victory being Lionhide Overdrive, right? Um, However, I think the terrain advantage Jirohime has, along with her poison darts and her, she's also kind of strong. Like she's also kind of strong. So I think all three of those not only are just a problem for Tevin, I think they result in a genuine loss for him, right? Especially because she can web him up and then kind of do the same thing. She could web him up and keep him in place, or she could web him up and um, shoot poison darts at his head, and then Tevin's just dead, right? Um, the only, like I said, the only feasible routes Tevin has for victory is Lionhide Overdrive, and I guess a victory for him is essentially forcing her escape or outright defeat. But forcing her escape is the only real plausible thing to occur, right? Um, like I said, you could argue Blacksmith Forge and Hammerhide, and if you do think that he can successfully pull off Hammerhide technique after being captured one time, or like one of the first few times, right? I don't think she can win. Because Tevin's movement speed increase is on par with Kaguya's when he's in Rage Mask with a Hammerhide. So even if it's sort of a lesser Hammerhide, but still better than the one he does with just his arm, I think it's possible for him to sort of fall and get back up there with a quickness, right? Um, you could also just argue he does the exact same Hammerhide he does later on, which directly matches Kaguya, which would allow him to fall and then just jump and basically one tap her, right? Um, but for the most part, this is a high difficulty fight where I think Tevin just loses. He has a terrain advantage, or terrain disadvantage. He has a durability disadvantage now, and she has poison darts. She also has strength and durability in her own right with her arms. She has webs that are shown to directly catch Anton and hold him in place, with him needing to summon Kong to set him free, right? Um, so with all of that understood, I think he loses here, more likely than not, right? The only real way you think he wins is if the first time he is caught by her webs, he activates Lionhide Overdrive or Hammerhide, and is able to sort of get to her successfully, right? Which I think is possible if he is sort of doing that kind of, terrain sort of movement, right? But you also have to think, like, if he survives the fall, some of you might not think he survives falling because Anton was literally suspended high in the air. Um, and if Anton had more chi to use for a shift, I think it's supposed to be implied that he would live. Or at the very least, if he had enough chi for a shift, he could shift into Kong and then, or he could shift into Kong and use a staff, which would allow him to, more secure himself and Pedersen, right? If you don't think he would survive falling from the height, right? Um, if you do think Tevin can survive falling from that height, he essentially just goes back up there with more attack potency, regardless of the route, and kind of one taps her, right? There's nothing she could do at that point, in my opinion. Um, yeah. So, all in all, Tevin can take 2 dubs. Um, if it was a more, neutral setting, I think Tevin has a better chance against her. But since she has a definitive terrain advantage with a sort of equal-ish outlook on their strengths, and she has actual good durability even against Anton's 50% staff, I don't really think there's anything just base Lionhide Tevin can do against her, right? I think he tries, he gets captured, and if he shows some sort of mercy, he can try again, um, instead with a successful hide, whether that be overdrive or hammer. And if not, he just dies. He just dies basically. Yeah, he just dies. Or she leaves him there and she escapes, right? that would still be a loss for him, right? But yeah. So at the end of it all, Tevin can take 2 dubs more definitively, with Vince being low, sort of low mid difficulty. I feel like it's more low to mid, or more low than mid. Against Sota, it's more mid than low. And then the Jirohime fight is outright a high difficulty fight, with him likely losing at the end of it. Um, oh yeah, so what's good? What's good, Sandman? I'm looking probably gonna turn off stream. I do have to use the bathroom real quick though. Is Tevin running the gauntlet? Yeah, basically. Not to go off topic, but do you think Shay is more powerful than Kaguya in his Wrath form as of now? Yes. He was more powerful than Kaguya in season 2 when he activated his war state. Remember, she still has a passive muscle form that she didn't fully tap into until the last moment. That as well. So there's just nothing Tevin can do if he does not have his 2 other hide/forms active, right? There's just nothing he can do, right? There's just nothing he can do, because the other form, if she goes into it fully, which I don't think she would, I don't personally don't think she would because she doesn't hear, um, but if she does, and Tevin's in Lion Hide Overdrive or in Hammer Hide, he should just have more AP than her by way of sort of being more comparable and outright stronger than supposedly the strongest member of their group, right? Which should be Ryu, right? Yeah. And we have seen, his chi slash just sever Ryu's leg. And he could do the same thing to, I guess, one of her arms, right? But yeah, outside of that, there's nothing he can do against her. But he does get 2 wins against the other men in the visual, which is still good for him. But it's not like these guys are overall that much better than him or more comparable to him in any full way outside of Sota, who still just loses to him without the whatchamacallit, without even using Lionhide, right? So all in all, I guess if you want to do like a score, it would be 2 wins, 1 loss, which is still a net positive. But you could also say more overall that since Jirohime should be stronger than these 2, it's still a sort of net loss, right? Or a net neutral, I guess. But yeah. And I feel like this assessment is the most fair. I do like Tevin a lot, so to say he loses to Jirohime should show the sort of unbiased nature and just genuine taking into account of each character, especially since I'm putting him at a disadvantage already. But I think it's more fair and more interesting if we just placed him, in everybody else's position, right? Because if he fights Vince or Sota, he would just be on the floor in the ballroom, right? But if he fights Jirohime, he would be in the sky, right? Or in the air, essentially. But if you put him and Jirohime in a more neutral setting where she doesn't have immediate access to, a sort of higher terrain where she can create a better terrain advantage for herself, I think it's still a high difficulty fight, but I think Tevin is more likely to win. I'm here in so full, yet the day isn't over. I haven't even eaten yet. My mom actually just left, so I have to leave probably soon, probably get ready soon. I think this is a good point to end the stream off on. I've been streaming for 2 hours. I've been streaming for 2 hours. I got the sort of last minute, yap session I wanted to do in. I'll go ahead and change the screen. So I think this is a good point to sort of end the stream off. Just a quick little 2-hour stream. Nothing real crazy. Cool little session. I think the concept of doing like our own little versus battles and like versus interactions is a lot better than sort of just looking them up. Please stream tonight. Nah, I don't think I want to. It'll take me. I also have to be. I don't have to wake up early tomorrow for work, but I would much rather like sleep. Tevin need more development. To be honest, everybody does. He's not the only one. Everybody does. Shit. Even this nigga can get some more development. We know like three very relevant things. Four really very relevant things about him. Actually maybe five. He's a Thanatos user. He created the Heart Clan. Nigga, these are his grandkids. He can't be controlled by Thanatos, and he hid the Merlin Stone. Who the fuck is this nigga? We can't even confirm if this weapon is a talent weapon or not, right? So who the fuck is this nigga, bro? But yeah, everybody needs development. He's not the only one. But yeah. I definitely on that 5. Once the 60 seconds pass, and it reaches 5 o'clock. Why he blue? Because he's a Thanatos vessel? Question mark? Oh, you asking why they're blue? That's the same reason as to why Nico's blue. Well, what you mean? Is a Heart Clan trait, gang. A very minor Heart Clan trait, like a 1 in 4 chance to an 8 chance, potentially even lower since we don't even see that many other blue ones. When Sabito trains, we only see Nico, but yeah, like it's just a trait that basically Malhazar passed on. Kind of crazy. I do think I will do something with that though. Alright, y'all. Hopefully y'all had a great time. Hope y'all had you had some good eats. WYAP session. As always, the VOD will be up after the stream is over. W stream. I'm gonna go get ready. It's 5:01. Gotta put these clothes on and go to this place and get some food. And I'll probably be back. Shoot, I might even be back before 8. Yeah, Ordeal drops tonight. And I gotta be on that and with the episode. I gotta do a little bit of editing too for the audio. But y'all have a good time. Y'all have a good day. And I will catch y'all in the next one.